Hello everyone. Let's start with today's stream. So today the topic is going to be a little bit different than usual, and we're going to start with actually showing I'll be introducing the Buildbox to Unity adapter. So I'll be showing that, and the reason why I'm doing this topic is because you probably, if you're a Buildbox user, you probably heard the news about a week ago. Buildbox made some changes, a lot of not a lot of changes in terms of the software, but in their licensing structure again. So if you go into price, now you can see their new pricing, and there's Buildbox 3 and Buildbox Classic, which was Buildbox 2. And right here we can see that they have changed, and there's the revenue share. So they got revenue share back, and now revenue share is on every tier here. So no matter what subscription you have, you're still gonna have to pay the revenue share. And it's a pretty harsh revenue share in my opinion, but that's just my opinion. They used to have, a year ago, they did have a revenue share for the free tier, but it was like, I think 20% or something like that, and the other ones didn't have any revenue share. But now even the paid subscription, I mean the pro license, can get 10% revenue share, which I don't know. When you pay for a pro license and then you do revenue share, I think that's a bit too much. But so that's the reason why I decided to do this stream. And a lot of folks actually are moving to Unity, and I decided to make something that will help that adoption to Unity. And this is the adapter. This is the adapter that I was working in, and the reason for this adapter is to, I guess, migrate if you have made games with Buildbox, to make it easier to migrate them so you can follow the same game logic and stuff like that. And let me start and show what does that adapter look like. So I am using visual scripting because you guys were using no code solution in Buildbox, and Unity has a no code solution as well. It's called visual scripting, but they don't have these nodes that I've created. So the nodes that you see right now, or the units, in Unity they're called units, but basically you can see that they actually have the name that you are used to, and that will make it easier to actually understand. To understand what you're doing and basically slowly transition. So that's a starting, how you can start. But again, all of these units that you see here, they're actually created with visual scripting. They're called super units, so you can actually double click and go inside one of these, and you can see exactly how they're structured here with visual scripting using the units that are provided in Bolt, because Bolt has very low level access to low level units, and these are basically using these units that I have here are using those low level units to create the units that I guess can perform the same functionality that we are used to in Buildbox. Now, before I'll show the example of how everything works. So in here, how everything works when the game is actually running, but I'll show how the connections work here. So I guess connection wise, they work exactly the same as we did in Buildbox. So you can drag and connect for instance, when I touch press to enable movement, and that's going to start moving. So that's the flow connections, and then there is these data connections, which you can see they're circular, and these are actually like settings that you used to have in Buildbox. So everything you see is with settings. I didn't import some of the settings that I didn't find that they were useful to actually import, and there's a better ways of approaching that in Unity, and I'll be expanding that and showing that how you can do that. So so there is also the start unit that comes with visual scripting, and basically that's the same thing that you used to see in Unity. So this is the first thing that's going to run once this game object gets created, or this asset as you referred to in to Buildbox, and you can enable it. But I also have the ability this enable on start. So there is a lot, I guess, of the nodes that I've recreated. Try to make it create, and then there's some nodes like pause and resume. I don't think that Buildbox has those. I think they do have restart and show and hide. These are basically, well, kind of set visible, except set visible in Buildbox does not actually disable the game object. This will actually disable the game object. So enough of talking about all of this, and let me actually show you how does all of this work. So I'm gonna go here and show you guys what I have for the scene. So the scene is real simple. I guess this, I may not even notice, but I guess this is the standard 3D scene in Buildbox. So you have your ground and you have your box. I mean, the ground is pretty short. And then this is the scene view, and this is the game view. And I'm gonna actually work in the game view. So I'm gonna switch the UI a little bit around. We can drag these windows and switch it, but I have a preset that has a VS visual scripting preset. So first let me select that cube, because I'm going to be changing the logic on that cube, and I'll go to the layout, and basically I have this graph, script graph that I was showing on this side, and then the game preview on this side. So that's going to be easier to show how this stuff works. So you can actually click play and start the game, and you can modify the script when the game is actually running. Now currently I don't have it actually as a macro. So the settings that I'm going to change right now during the gameplay are not going to change, but I can switch that so that each time that we reload the game and do something in the game, it's going to actually restart. Okay, so quick note about the version of Unity that I'm using. The Unity version is 2021, and with this version, Unity actually switched the bolt, what was used to call bolt, to calling it visual scripting. So it's the same thing, but they've integrated directly, so you don't have to import any packages with bolt anymore. In 2021, you just have a visual scripting package that is included by default. You might need to go and check, make sure that it's installed in the packages, but if you do that, I'll show that if anyone has issues with that. Let me see what we have in the chat. So okay, hello, hi everyone, thanks for joining. Explain what this video is going to teach. Yeah, so in this video, again, I guess that was an early question. I'm going to be showing how to use these units, basically how you can use the same skill that you learned in Buildbox, the use of nodes and all of that in Unity using these units that we have, or nodes. Hello, okay, the video came to software, Buildbox and Unity, difference between them. So yeah, I do have a video on that. I'm not really sure what Buildbox is not good enough and that demand too much money for the product. Yeah, so that change is in the licensing. They do want a lot of money and a lot of people are not happy, and if you are one of those, this is exactly this is going to help you to actually use that, to use the knowledge that you already learned, how to use Buildbox and you can apply that in Unity. Now again, you can do way much more in Unity than in Buildbox. So this is just like transferring the knowledge that you got from the Buildbox into Unity, and then you can get started by expanding that knowledge and making real awesome games. Okay, wow, looks great. I hope become the next bracket is okay, rack is for visual scripting, for bolt. Yeah, the bolt and visual scripting is exactly the same thing. So Unity renamed from bolt to visual scripting 2021. So from now on, I still try to add bolt into the titles so that if someone is using bolt, they'll be able to find it. But that's the same thing, visual scripting and bolt. In Unity script, how many nodes are there in Unity visual scripting? There is a lot of nodes, and you can actually expand it by any custom script they import. You can actually also make them available in the script. So again, there's a lot of the ones that are added by default, and those units are pretty, I guess, they're all low level. So that's one, I guess, downside from if you're transferring from Buildbox, is because all the units are low level and you don't have that experience with actually interacting with lower level units unless you actually use the code in Buildbox. If you used code, then low level units are going to be easier for you to understand. But that's why I created this adapter, so that there's some high level, and the units that we're used to seeing in Buildbox actually are high level. Okay, so let's get started. I think I got up with the chat. Right here, I have some nodes, and these nodes were enabled unstarted, so I don't have to actually connect to the start. And in other case, we could have just connected. And you can see that I can click on the game right now. It doesn't do absolutely nothing. And we can change that. So the touch node, you probably know that anywhere in the screen, if you touch, it register that touch, and you can make some activities or actions with it. So right here, I have some movement nodes. So move, rotate, scale, and jump. So let's actually connect on press to jump. So when we press, we're going to trigger the jump, and the jump force is set currently to 10. So after I connect that, if I click anywhere in the screen, you can see that that jump is working. So you can actually do live edits, which is pretty cool. Then we're gonna do some other units. So just like we used to see the delay, you can trigger a delay, and then 1 second delay, we can trigger a jump. And you can see that I clicked. So right now I'm gonna click. Okay, click twice. So it jumped twice, and you can see the flow. You can actually see how the units are working. So there's the circle that is flowing. I'm not sure how good is it seen on the video, but basically that is the option. Then we have the is touch, and so the touch basically just like we're used to see it, like you can touch anywhere in the screen and it's going to register that. The is touch is you have to actually touch the square. So right now you can see that if I click on it, nothing happens, but if I touched it, it actually jumps. Now also I have a scale right here, scale unit. That unit is not actually available in Buildbox. I decided just one. It's a pretty good node to have for some game types, so you might be able to know what game type I'm talking about. So for instance, I want to scale in the Z direction, so this X, not in Z, in Y. So X, Y, and Z, so this is Y. And let's scale by 1. When I press, I'm going to enable the scaling, and it's going to be scaling 1 unit per second. And when I release, I want to disable the scaling. And check it out. This is how it looks. If I click on the screen, it starts growing. If I release, it stops growing. So you probably from here can see what type of cool game ideas that you can actually create by just this one unit right here. And again, if you pass a negative number, it's going to scale down. So that is pretty cool. Then the move node, you can do the same thing with the move node. So move 1 unit into the right when we click, so we can control when it moves. And that's how it works. So there is the separation here, so the pressed and released. Sometimes in Buildbox it wouldn't be consistent. I think as far as I remember, when you press, it actually sends a true, and then when you release, the pressed actually sends a false signal. So there is a lot of filtering out of the signals that were required to do. So instead of doing or trying to recreate that approach, I decided to keep it clean. So if you're pressed, it actually triggers the pressed. If you release, it just triggers the release. And that. So then I have the UI buttons, and these are basically any UI elements. So again, you can always check inside what's going on here and what kind of units are used to create that. And if you ever want to actually modify any of these units, you can actually modify them. For instance, the default settings for enable, or the values that you have here. If you go inside and actually modify here, you'll be able, whenever you will be creating those units, they're actually going to be reusing the default value for you. Now, I am showing like this list right here that I have here, all the units, but in Unity, we can actually search for these units. So for instance, let's try to find a jump node, for instance. Okay, I can search for jump, and there's the jump node right there, and we can connect it to whatever we want. So it's just, this is just a layout that I created, so it's gonna be easier to see what these are. Now some other units that I'm going to show here. So we have the if collide, and what we can do here with an if collide, for instance, let's make our box jump without stopping. So whenever it actually triggers the collision with this ground, it's actually going to trigger a jump, and we can connect the if collide. And currently the tag filter is empty, so it's any collision with anything is actually going to trigger this jump. But to start it, to start this cycle that we have here, I'm going to use a trigger, so it would actually leave this if collide. So it's going to leave, and now it should continue jumping. So it's like a bounce effect that we can create just by using that loop. Let's see what we have in the chat. Okay, wrote wrong. I mean, smart fingers means that be a popular as brackets and bold. yeah, I'm not sure I'm gonna be as popular as Brackies, but I'm glad that I can help you guys, whoever is actually interested in visual scripting and stuff like that. So that's cool that there's interest in that. How to make a save and save system smart. I've been struggling for months to try to figure it out. Please help. So the level of saving systems really depends on what you're trying to save. So it can be very simple, saving just one variable, or you're gonna have to store multiple variables. Maybe even write a file if you're trying to save a lot of things. But again, it depends what you're trying to save. Sorry about for a comment. Thank you. Pretty awesome stuff. Congrats. Okay. Still think Playmaker is much closer to Buildbox, and basically those nodes are already pre-made actions in Playmaker. Those nodes are actions you can think of. Won't this be very limited when you want to go beyond those already prepared nodes? Actually, Bolt is made closer to C#, which is better than if it is harder, it's better eventually. Yeah, so I don't know, as far as the Playmaker is more like a state machine, finite state machine. So but in Bolt you can actually, or in visual scripting, you can do both. So you can do the state machine approach, or you can use the scripting approach, which is what actually was used in Buildbox. Buildbox was going towards the scripting, except they were mixing the data and the flows together, and it was kind of, you really need to know what was sending throughout. So you need to know the internals of every node to actually know what's being sent and which nodes you can connect and which you can't connect together. So it's a knowledge that, but in here, it's pretty cool that the connections are really clear. So the data connections are the circles and they're color coded, so you know exactly what types you can connect, and it will not actually allow you connecting different types. So I can connect like vector 2 to vector 3 because there's a default conversion that happens there, but other units, for instance delta 2 booleans, I can't connect those. So it does create a clear connection wise, but the flows, the green arrows, you can connect them wherever you want because those are actually the common ones as well. Anyways, so other nodes that we have here. So we have the if collide, then we have the spawn. Again, the if collide, if we go inside here, it includes a whole bunch of the default collision types. So there's the triggers and the collisions, both 2D and 3D collisions. So just using all of these to try to simplify what is provided by Unity, and just put it into just one of these. Just joined the live stream. Have you mentioned insane Buildbox price? Yes, so I did mention the pricing change, and that this is the reason why I'm actually creating these units. So in case you want to try out with visual scripting, this is going to help you a lot in the nodes and the way that you are used to making in Buildbox. You can start with that, but again, Bolt doesn't have the limit. You have all the low level, and you can do pretty much anything with them. So rotation, scale, I already mentioned those, and then you have if collide, then spawn, which if you want to create some units, you can make some pretty cool stuff with that. So for instance, I can do a on touch. I can actually duplicate this cube. So now if I click, you can see that these cubes actually duplicate. So all the cubes that I have here, they actually duplicate. let's turn off that. We don't want to duplicate too much of them. And now we can use the is touch to make one specific to jump. So okay, I guess I messed it up by, so you can see that right here, the problem that I have here, and it's because the script that I had for that that preset when I was touching, it actually was saving that script, because when I was duplicating, it was actually duplicating the script as well. So initially those units are these objects that are in a scene, they actually have the previous code that I had. And that is the problem, because I'm not actually using a macro. And I'll show that in a bit. So now if I stop the game, all of that's going to disappear, and it's just because the choice that I did. I have an embedded script machine right here, and if I switch to graph, well, actually not switch, but let's convert to graph, and we'll create it, I'll call it main graph, I guess. So called main graph, and now let me turn my layer on. And now actually if I click play, Control P to start the game, make a video on it as the stream is very long and sometimes confusing. Yes, I will be making a short video, as I decided to introduce it in the live stream. It's not gonna be a long, probably gonna be finishing up this live streaming a couple of minutes, well, not a couple of minutes, but like 5 minutes or something like that. So again, let's try recreating the same thing that I did in there. So spawn, I'll do a cube, and you can see that I can't find that cube anymore. And it's because I don't have the cube as an asset, as a prefab. So if I create the cube as a prefab, you can just drag and drop it right there. It's going to create a prefab. You can see it has blue. That means it becomes an asset, sort of like an asset that we used to see in Buildbox. And now if I click, I can actually see the cube here, because it only displays the asset. It doesn't show the game objects that are in the scene. And now I can select this cube, and each time that I click on it, you can see it duplicates. And if I decide to change the script, let's change the script to use something else. I think this should work. Yeah, there we go. So I changed to use the script, and because I have the file of this graph is actually saved, and it's used by all those objects, the changes that I make here is actually applied to all the changes of the units. So now I connect it to the is touch, and that means that each one that I'm going to touch is actually going to be jumping. So yeah, if you use Buildbox, this should be like really familiar to you, and like you know exactly how all of these units work. There is some little bit differences that you see, but they're pretty simple to understand. Like enable and disable, those are separate, so you don't send a true signal or false signal to disable, but actually just connection there. And same thing with they're pressed and released. It's just a flow. There's no data that is flown here. You can see that on this send event. So I have this send event that does not have any data, and there's also a send. I have not added here, but there's send that actually, okay, this is no data, and then there's a send that has data. So if you want to send some data, you can use this node, but if you're not going to be sending any data through the send and receive data, you can just not use it. And basically we can show that it's functional. So I'm going to connect it to event, but this is going to be isTouch, and it's going to trigger this event 1. But this event 1 is going to be triggered on all of this, because that's how Buildbox events work. It's global, it's not specific to an item. So I connect to the jump, and now even though I'm using isTouch, it should trigger the event on all of them. There we go. And that's exactly how it's supposed to work. So that's the events. Then set color. We can, I guess, change color to something else if we want. So let's say something green, dark green. So each one we click now, it's going to change color. And if we change the color to something else, we can change it like that. So that's just one of the visuals that I decided to create. Now, also, we have created some other ones. So for instance, the hide. We can hide, actually it doesn't hide this specific, you can connect the objects that you want to hide, which, yeah, so this one, it needs a little bit work still. I'm probably going to hide the specific, so you can say that hide self, but I'm thinking I'm going to change that to actually just be included this inside. But that's, again, that's those units are not actually used by Buildbox. These are some that I'm creating. Now the pause and resume, let me actually demonstrate those. So for pause and resume, we can use the press and release. So when we press, I'm gonna actually trigger a, how should I do this? Okay, so when I release, no. When I press, I'm gonna trigger a jump. No. Okay, so when I press, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to demonstrate this. So when I press, I'm gonna click at the resume, and if the game is currently running, it's not gonna do anything. And then basically, when I resume after that, I want to do a jump. So some of the units have like daisy chain, so you can actually connect them. And then when I release, I'm actually going to pause the game. So, and the effect that this is going to look like is when I click on this unit, it jumps, and then I use the touch instead of isTouch. So it jump, and then if I release when they are in the air, you can see that the game is paused. And then if I let it go, it actually jumps again, and if I released, it actually paused. So if I click and hold right now, they should fall down. So that's basically an effect that you can create with pause. But I mean, again, pause and resume, that's, you can use that with UI buttons and all of that fun stuff. Okay, so what else do you guys want to see? Pretty neat, excited to see what where this can take you. So I will create, again, I said I'm gonna, in the description I mentioned that I'm gonna share how you can actually try this out. So I'm gonna actually get some of these units, and I'll create a download link. So somewhere in the description or in comments, actually I'll add the link. I don't have the link yet created, but after the stream you can like refresh the page in like 10 minutes or something like that, and I should have some of the units that are I show here, and I'll make those available. And using those units, I'm gonna actually create another video, a short video on how to like use them and introduce them, and how to set it up and import it with Unity. So that's a video that I'm actually going to record, and so for those people that want a shorter video and don't want me to talk forever, that's going to be there. And what else you guys want to see? So the timer unit is actually, I decided there's no point of recreating it. The timer unit that comes by default with Bolt is actually pretty good, so I just left it as is. The random units, well, they're pretty straightforward, exactly as we seen. So you have one input, and then it randomly chooses one output, and this I decided to just go 2, 3, 4 and 5, and you can actually mix them together and stuff like that. And also there's a random one that uses the threshold if you want to control the percentage of which one goes where. So if you want for instance 10% to go under, you can just specify 0.1, and that's going to be 10% under and 90% over. Or you can do 70%, just like the revenue share with a free Buildbox. Okay, so I think that's pretty good. Did I miss anything in the chat? Let me check. Okay, make video on the stream. Yes, okay, for anyone waiting, anyone wanting to learn about more exciting and from scratch software has many videos on the channel. Okay, so yes, that's good thing. I forgot to mention that. So I do have videos. You can also join the Discord, and I do post some, like if people are asking for help, we have a community that helps each other. And so Discord, if you want to join and see the updates, sometimes I post updates there that I don't actually mention in the YouTube. But then if you're looking for some assets that work pretty good with Unity, I would suggest to try out like some Kenny assets. They are free to use for anyone, but if you want to help out Kenny, you can also donate. I mean, he's not sponsoring my videos, but just I use a lot of his assets in my tutorials because they're available for free, and you can actually recreate the same thing using those assets. And then also there are units that I've created and the template projects that are created using visual scripting, and it's an ongoing project, and I'll be actually adding this this package also to these units also to that package, so that you can actually for people that are supporting that project, then they can get a hold of this. And I'll be also posting it separately, so if you just want this specific one, you can post it. Now, like someone mentioned, I do have a tutorials on Bolt, and there's a lot of them. And the recent one that I've created, I think that's a good starting point if you have not used. Let me try to get it. Okay, so if you have not used Bolt, Unity, or Bolt at all, the starting point would be actually this one right here. So this is a short 4-video playlist that you can actually go through and recreate a simple game. But that one is these videos are just pure Unity and Bolt. They're not actually using the units that have been shown here. I'll create some tutorials with those units, so you can actually check that out. Please get more Discord on. Please get me on Discord. Okay, so I guess someone posted on Discord, how do I touch rotate in Unity Bolt? So that unit, and I have not created yet. There's still a list that someone posted of the units that are useful. So I'm actually going through that list and trying to add most of them in. Although some of the units are not really useful in Bolt, for instance, stick to edge. That is not useful in Bolt because that is actually configured through the UI inspector, and has more functionality than stick to edge and works much better. So there's no point of trying to transfer stick to edge to Unity because they got a better solution for that. Okay, and yeah, so touch rotate and touch move, those are still not here. So I do have the 4-way swipe and a UI button, but there's some other controls that, for instance, the keyboard. But for the keyboard, I mean, Unity has pretty good units for keyboard, so we can look for keyboard input, get key up. You can use this, and that's actually going to give you the on key presses, but AWS keys from or keyboard move, no, that I'll probably recreate. Okay, so I think that is it. That's all I want to probably mention in this live stream. So if you want to see any other nodes or something, make sure you mention that in the comments. I will be looking through the comments, and that's what I'm going to be going through to decide which ones to add next. And I'll try to add as much as I can. Now, I started with just adding the ones that I used when I was using Buildbox, but yeah, you might be using, you might have used more than I did in terms of the units, but because I tried to, like, I didn't need that much units to actually create the simple games that you would in Buildbox. Okay, so thanks for tuning in. I hope you guys enjoy it, and be in a watch out for that link or the comment in this YouTube for the link to where you can actually download some of these units and try them out in Buildbox. But again, if you want to wait for the tutorial video and show me showing those units and how to import it, if you don't want to spend time learning, trying to figure that out on your own, although I do always encourage to try things on your own before you look for tutorials, but in case you fail at creating that or get stuck at one point, I will create to help you guys out with that. Yes, the touch mode is also going to be added soon. See you later. It goes, and